Inside the Criminal Minded. Stories from a life inside Kentucky penitentiaries. Lock yourself in and find your place among the criminal minded. Welcome to the inside.
Welcome to another episode of The Criminal Minded. Today's episode, though, is not going to focus on the exploits of Tony Newton and his prison time, but yet it's going to focus on kind of what I feel like is one of the major contributing factors of going to prison to begin with, and that's addiction. Addiction is an animal all by itself, and one that certainly can't be covered in any kind of depth here in just the time that we have, but I want to introduce you to somebody. I want to introduce you to a friend of Tony's that I had a chance to meet and talk with for a little bit, and found his life to be just is incredible, the path that it took. And I could very clearly see his path to addiction. Now, he was just an ordinary kid in an ordinary town living an ordinary life until some extraordinary circumstances came about. I think as you listen to his story, maybe you can find a place that you identify with and you can see where you went left and he went right, and maybe that's the difference in how your lives ended up so different. Or maybe for a lot of you listening, your lives aren't very different at all. Maybe your life resembles his in a lot more ways than my own.
Russell Kearns, I'm 33 from Kansas City, Kansas. It was 2004, and I decided that I wanted to go fight for the country. Kind of had different ideas of what it was going to be like when I joined. Yeah. And it ended up being a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. As soon as I came out of basic, I went to Fort Benning to do airborne school. And then from airborne school, I went over to Fort Bragg for my first duty station. And from there, I was there for about, I'd say, 3 months. They told me to pack my stuff. It was time to go. The first day in there, ended up having like 10 drill sergeants come running up on us when we got off the bus. A whole bunch of us came in all at once. They came running at us, screaming and yelling and telling us to start running and pick up our stuff, take it somewhere, bring it back. We didn't do it fast enough. It's time to do it again. We probably did that 2 or 3 times. It was crazy. I didn't know what to think of it. Every time we'd get complacent thinking everything was going to be fine, and it wasn't. We'd end up taking all of the stuff out of our dorm, and we would move it all to the drill pad. Everything from the second floor, bring it all downstairs where we do formation on the drill pad, and we'd have to set up our entire bunks, our entire dorm, basically outside, set it up, put it all together, and then take it back up. They really whip you into shape and try to teach you a lot of new morals. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. It was instilled in us very quickly.
The military was a great escape. It was everything that he needed. Structure, camaraderie, maybe even acceptance. Now it's been 3 months after training, and now he's going to war.
It'll wake you up really quick. There was a lot of it that was hell. A lot of it was really good too. I can't say that every experience that I had in Iraq was bad. We had a lot of good experiences. We went to hospitals. They gave out medical aid. We gave out backpacks. There were times that I even went and played soccer with kids out on a soccer field while I was dressed up in an IBA, an ACH, and a weapon, running around on a soccer field, just having fun with the kids. And there were a lot of times that people would truly respect us there and that wanted us there, but at the same time, there were a lot of people that didn't. And it was hard to differentiate between the two sometimes. We had a guy that decided to mortar us while we were playing soccer with their kids, and they mortared us while their own kids were out there on the field. Anger. I was extremely angry. The first guy that died was actually in our platoon, and man, it made me really angry. Got it to the point where there were times where I wanted to do something that wasn't morally right, just because I was angry about the whole situation of losing one of my brothers. We've got a chaplain. They came and prayed with us. We had a little memorial service for them. But after that, it was time to go back out. I had a really hard time with that for a really long time. There's still times where certain smells or certain sights will tear me up. It's not something that you can unsee. You can't take it away. It is what it is. Everybody always remembers the great things in their life, but then you got an instance in your life that affected you greatly, and you're going to always remember it. There were times where after something would happen, we'd go back out and I'd physically be angry at the entire country. I didn't care whether the people out there were being good to us last week. I didn't care about what happened last month. I cared about what just happened yesterday. And I held a grudge toward them. And to this day, I feel like I would still hold a grudge on a lot of them if I were to go back over there. But at the same time, I had a lot of good experiences over there where I truly liked a lot of the people that we dealt with on a daily basis. And really messes with your emotions. I mean, I've had really, really mixed emotions on it for a long time.
This is a whole new world for Russell. This is a whole new experience. And it's about to get ratcheted up. You see, they had word on where someone was at that was very important, or at least our government considered them very important to the mission.
There was a large weapons cache in a big warehouse. It was like every time we'd go out and get mortared, we'd go to the poo site, which is the point of origin, and we'd go out there and we would always see chicken feed, and we never really put two and two together. And one day our interpreter, we passed a building and he said, "They sell chicken feed." We looked at him like, "What are you talking about? We don't have chickens." And he was like, "We just had chicken feed last time we got hit." So we ended up going in. We had a guy that went in and took video of a lot of things. To this day, it's still one of the largest weapons caches ever to be found. It was the day before Easter in 2008, and we went in. Tariq Jundi was actually a very wanted man, and we went in and we killed him essentially. And man, it felt good, but at the same time, it tore me up inside. Taking somebody's life and then getting rewarded for it was not something that I ever expected to happen. I ended up with a Bronze Star afterwards. I got shot twice that went into my skin. I got shot through the shoulder, and I got shot in the rear end one time. And then I got shot one time that it was in the chest, but it hit my bulletproof vest. And it ended up bruising me all the way up into my face, down into my legs, around part of my back. It really destroyed a lot of me when I got hit in the chest. But heck, I think the worst one ever was getting shot in the ass. In all honesty, we weren't even being shot at. We never even heard the gunshot. We were walking down the road, down MSR Tampa, and all of a sudden, something hit me right in the ass. And I jumped up and kind of squealed like a little girl. Didn't know what the heck happened. And I was bleeding profusely, and I was like, what in the world just got me? And it ended up being a round that somebody had shot up into the air at some point, somewhere, and it just randomly came down and got me. My son was born while I was over there, and I didn't get to see him get born. I didn't get to hold him till he was 3 months old, and I felt like I missed a lot, and I was afraid of missing out with my family. You know, I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't get to come home. You know, what would they do? What would my son do without me? You know, it was one of the hardest things was to deal with having to say goodbye to your family, not knowing if it's the last time you're going to say goodbye. We had a lot of guys die. There was 21 that died, one that committed suicide. You know, and it was hard. PTSD got to him really bad. Something that wasn't really able to be dealt with, really. It was like nobody understood, and like if we went to go talk to somebody about it, you know, they would have us go talk to somebody that's never deployed before, you know, and it's like, right. How the hell do you know what I'm going through if you've never been through it? You know, and it's hard to ask for help too. You know, you're supposed to be this great soldier, and to not be able to ask for help because of your pride really does a lot to somebody. You know, it gets to the point where when they're not able to ask because they feel like they shouldn't have to ask, or that so many other things have happened to so many other people. You know, why do I deserve to try to go get some help when other people don't even get that choice? I went down a really bad road with drugs, actually. I wanted to numb the pain. It was really hard to ask for help, but to be able to try to self-medicate, if you will, was almost detrimental in me not committing suicide at multiple different occasions. I used heroin for about 3 months while I was in the military still, and ended up overdosing and putting it down, never touching it again. That was scary to come home and possibly die off of a drug. It opened my eyes up, but then at the same time, I was scared to not numb the pain.
What drives a man so proud of his service, so proud of his family, so loving as a father and a husband, to end up in the throes of heroin? These problems only led to more problems, and those problems led to drugs. There's not much after this that I want to interrupt to say. I feel like Russell's story is so compelling that I just kind of want you to hear it without me interrupting.
When I got out of the military, it was like I had too much time on my hands. It ended up where the more time I had on my hands and not having all my brothers with me and all the guys that always had my back, I wasn't around them anymore. I moved away, and they were still doing what they had to do, and it got to a point where I got really lonely and really depressed. There were times where I'd lay in my bed for 5-6 days at a time, and somebody asked me, they were like, "What's the matter with you?" I told them a little bit of it. You know, I didn't want to tell them everything that goes on. You know, it was hard to tell somebody, "Hey, I've got depression really bad and I've got PTSD really bad." It was really hard to admit that to anybody. I wouldn't even admit it to my wife for a long time. And the guy knew that I was having issues with nightmares, and he was like, "Here, we've got methamphetamine. If you want to try it." And I was like, "Man, I'll do anything to not have to go to sleep tonight." And I tried it, and man, I was off to the races. I didn't have to dream that night. In fact, I didn't have to dream for 5, 6, 7 days at a time. And I thought, you know what? This is exactly what I needed. Lo and behold, even though it helped really well for temporary, it was like putting a Band-Aid on a permanent problem. It actually got worse. My drug addiction ended up taking me to places that I would have never gone to ever a day in my life. doing things, actually ruining my ex-wife's life, my child's life. Like, I was never there for any of them. It consumed me, because I didn't want to be thinking about anything except for the drug, because thinking about the drug was easier than thinking about the pain, and it ended up making the pain a lot worse in the end. I actually lost my wife because of it. Her and I are on great talking terms now that I'm sober. I'm 15 months sober as of about 5 days ago, and I'm slowly making amends for the things that I did to her for not being there. I really put her through the ringer. It was like, if I was in pain, it was almost like I had to make her feel like she was in pain. That way we could be on a level playing term, and it destroyed her. It destroyed me. It destroyed my kid. Got to a point where I realized that I really, really screwed up. Now that it took getting sober to find that out, though. While I was out there, I never thought that I was hurting her in any way. I just felt like doing the drugs was okay. It was what consumed me. It was what made me tick. And, looking back on it, man, I did things to that woman that she never deserved. I mean, she loved me thick and thin, even when I didn't love myself. And she would have just literally moved heaven and earth to do something for me. And I just ignored it all because I felt like if I put her into a little bit of pain, maybe I could get out of a little bit of pain.
All these revelations, all these feelings, luckily led Russell out of the dark and onto a path that maybe gave him a little more hope in life. It sounds like it, and I really hope that it's stuck. I haven't seen Russell in a few months, but at 15 months clean when we did this, I think there's a pretty good chance that this part of the story is still around.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous of going back out and living the right way. I'm not sure what life's going to have for me. I'm coming close to the end of a program. I'm actually living in long-term rehab right now. And I'm scared to death to leave, in all honesty. I'm scared what's going to happen. I know that I don't want to do drugs ever again. But there I ended up having so many friends, kind of like the camaraderie of the military. You end up living with them and eating with them and going out and doing things with them, doing everything with them, and I don't want to leave there and feel like that I'm missing something again. I'm kind of afraid of boredom. Boredom was when a lot of things started happening to me. I've got the Lord in my life now. That's going to be a big change. I actually held a lot of resentments towards God for a really long time. In fact, I actually got baptized this morning at church.
Congratulations on that too.
And I don't blame God for anything anymore. And I'm excited to live a life that's worth living now. I'm just scared of what life's going to bring. I'm ready for the next chapter, but I'm scared to flip the page. Others that died overseas, they died honorably. They did the absolute best they could have ever done for their country. But then in addiction, there are a lot of people that, if they could have just got help in some way, shape, or form, I feel like they could have not had to die. The pain that people feel it's real. And a lot of people don't understand PTSD. And it's something that needs to be addressed. Because there's a lot of people out there, on average, 22 people die a day from suicide, from PTSD, from the military. It's 22 soldiers a day. I think it's a day. That's a lot of people coming home after they've went through a whole lot just to come home and feel unneeded or not wanted or feeling less than for whatever reason, whether it be survivor's guilt or they just can't handle the things that they did or that they had seen. And it's something that I would love to be able to see getting turned around. You know, all those guys could be something. The individual has to be able to recognize that they need help, and that's a really big problem. People having too much pride to say, hey, I'm hurting inside. If I could have just decided, you know what, I have a problem, and came to grips with it and gotten to be able to find a way to say, hey, I have a problem, I'm hurting inside. You know, as men, we're always taught, you know, men shouldn't cry, men shouldn't be upset, men shouldn't hurt inside. And we do. A lot of us do. And it's something that I don't know how to put it. It needs to be more acceptable for men to be able to say, I have a problem. You know, in the military, they always want you to be as tough as possible. They want you to be gung-ho about whatever you're doing. You know, it's not a good thing to say, hey, you know what, I need to miss a couple of days of work because I need to go see a therapist. You know, it's not something that they're okay with. You know, they say they are. I mean, if you say you're going to kill yourself, they're going to do something about it. But, you know, you could be hurting inside and not think that you're going to kill yourself that night. But to actually have to say, hey, I'm going to kill myself, you know, a lot of times people aren't even going to say it. They're just going to do it.
Right.
You know, and a lot of times it's a cry for help. But it has to go that far in order for a lot of us to get the help and to accept the help. You know, because accepting the help is really hard. Just as hard as saying, I need help. You know, so you got two things working against you right there that you're not used to doing, you know?
Welcome to the Criminal Minded.